now let's move on to the loops, which is one of the more interesting topics in this level. So let's go ahead and start with explaining the idea and the syntax of loops. Now, initially, we need to know that we have two types of loops. We have the for loop and we have the while loop. For the for loop, the syntax is a bit simple to understand. So we do for, then integer, then controlling, then we do for, then initial value, semicolon, condition, semicolon, change per iteration. Then from here we do whatever we want to repeat over and over and over. So, to simplify the concept, we basically use the loops to repeat a certain task, using initial value, a condition to check the value, then whenever we exit the loop, we change the value based on this section here, or this parameter here, and then we get back to the loop, we check the condition. If it's still false, we continue going into the loop. If it became true, we just, sorry, it's the other way around. If the condition was true, we go back into the loop. If the condition was false, we quit the loop. So let's take a quick example for integer I is equal to 3. Let's do I is equal to 0 first. Then I is less than 10, I plus plus, then system dot out dot print I with a space. So before running the code, let's try to understand or try to mimic what it will be doing. So the I will start from 0 and it will check each time if the I is less than 10. Once it's done with running this stuff, or whatever else is in the loop body, we call this the loop body. So once we're done running whatever is in the loop body, we increment the I by 1, and then we go again, check the condition, do whatever is in here if it's true, then increment the controlling variable again, and so on and so forth, until this condition is no longer true. So initially the I is 0, so we will be printing 0 and the space. Then the I will be 1 after finishing this stuff, because we incremented it. So it would be 1. We will go back into the loop because I is still less than 10. We'll print I, then a space, so 1 space. Then I would become 2. Check the condition, print the I, increment the I, check the condition, print the I, increment the I, and so on. So we would be basically printing the sequence of numbers from 0 to 9. When it comes to 9, when it prints 9 and we exit the loop, the I becomes 10. Then when we go back here, we check if the I is less than 10. It's not actually less than 10, it's equal to 10. So this condition becomes false and we quit the loop. Let's run the code to verify that. And as you can see here, now we need to have in mind that the I doesn't have to be called I. We can call it my loop variable, and it would still work fine. We can call it a, and it would still work as expected. So the name doesn't really matter, or doesn't really play a role in the functionality of the loop. Apart from that, we can also start the loop from 10, for example, and end it at 15. We can have any boundaries we want. We can also change this, so for example we would have it as plus equal to, so each time the I or the A or whatever we call the controlling variable, this variable would be basically incremented by 2. So running that, we would get 10 plus 2 is 12 plus 2 is 14. When it became 14, we added 2 again, so it became 16. 16 is not less than 15, so we stopped the loop. We can also go backwards. Let's say we want to go from 0 until A is greater than A is equal to 0. So we will keep repeating the loop from 10 all the way down to 0. We would just have to make sure that we're subtracting in this case. And let's try to mimic the output and see what it would be. I encourage you to pause the video now and try to figure out what the output would be. So I'll just start solving it now. So 10, we would go into the loop, we would print 10, then a space, subtract 2 from it, then we would go back into the loop because A is still greater than 0. We would print 8, subtract 2 again, print 6, subtract 2, 4, 2, and then we would subtract 2, check if A, which is now equal to 0, is greater than 0. This would give us false and the loop would stop. Let's run it and verify that. And as you can see there, we can also use division and multiplication as well. So it doesn't have to be plus or minus. That's the whole thing that I'm trying to clarify here. So we're done with these. We're done with 4 loops.